This story is crazy. I found it while doing research for another video, and I could not talk about it. It reads like something straight out of a soap opera, and let's just get into it. So basically, to set the scene, it's 474. The Eastern Roman Emperor, or Byzantine Emperor, whichever you prefer, Leo I, died of dysentery, history's not-so-silent killer. Since he passed without any sons, the crown went through his daughter Ariadne to his grandson Leo II. The young Leo was only 7 years old, so a regency council naturally developed under his father Zeno. Since Zeno was essentially calling the shots, the former Augusta, Verina, pressured the Senate to make him co-emperor. The father-son duo ruled as a pair for less than a year, as come November, the young Emperor Leo passed away due to an unknown cause. Some historians speculate that Zeno poisoned his son so he could have the throne to himself, but there is no evidence to confirm this, and in my opinion, this theory seems unlikely. Zeno was now the sole emperor of all Romans, but it was immediately clear that everybody hated him. You see, Zeno was a general from Isauria, a mountainous region in what is now Turkey. This region was largely isolated from the rest of the world and inhabited by a notoriously warlike people. The Isaurians built a fearsome reputation due to their habit of pillaging and marauding their neighbors. Just a few generations prior to this story, the Isaurians had come down from their mountain homes to wreak havoc on the Eastern Roman Empire. It is said that they laid waste to numerous villages and slaughtered the inhabitants indiscriminately. Rumors of savage mountaineers, mad with frenzy, spread throughout the empire like wildfire, and 70 years later, the depredation of the Isaurians was still infamous. To the populace of Constantinople, Zeno's rise to power meant Isaurian ascendency, which brought about an influx of rude mountaineers in the civilized capital. Historians of the time vented their feelings by describing Zeno as physically horrible and morally abominable, and he was said to be a coward. They were ripping this guy to shreds from the get-go, and things were only about to get worse. Within a year of his rise to power, a Vandal war party led by King Gaiseric invaded the western shores of Greece and captured Nicopolis. Additionally, the northern border was invaded by the Ostrogothic warlord Theodoric Strabo, not to be confused with Theodoric the Great, who I'll be releasing a video about on shortly. Make sure you subscribe if you're interested in that. Anyways, Strabo marched through Thrace and killed Zeno's master of soldiers. Zeno was caught fully off guard and unprepared for war, and now with one of his leading generals dead, he was in dire straits. An incredible stroke of luck saved his throne for the time being. The diplomat Zeno sent to the Vandal king impressed Gaiseric so thoroughly that he called off his invasion and departed from the Greek shores. But this stroke of luck was short-lived. Zeno's reign had already caused too much unrest for the Greeks' liking. A conspiracy developed to depose him. The puppet master behind this conspiracy was none other than his mother-in-law, the former Augusta Verina, the same woman who convinced the Senate to make him co-emperor in the first place. Part of me wonders if this was her plan all along. Perhaps she knew it would be easier to take the throne from a foreigner than from her grandson, and if that's the case, did she have something to do with the young Leo's death? This might be one of those questions lost to time. Anyways, Verina was a woman of great ambition. She lamented the fact that her position of power as Augusta, or Empress, whichever you prefer, had been overshadowed by her daughter, Ariadne, the current Augusta. Verina planned to remove her daughter and son-in-law so that she could put her lover/paramour, Patricius, on the throne. Patricius was the former master of offices, meaning he held enough political power to sway the Senate in favor of his claim. Upon his planned ascension, he and Verina would be officially married, meaning Verina would reclaim her position of power as Augusta. The plan seemed assured, but in order to sway the odds further in their favor, Verina enlisted the help of her brother, Basiliscus, a decision that would come to haunt her. Basiliscus was a retired general who left his post in shame after commanding a failed invasion of the Vandal kingdom less than a decade before. After his forces were defeated at the Battle of Cape Bon, he returned to Constantinople under accusations of treachery, but most agreed that he was probably just incompetent. Verina secured him a pardon, which allowed him to avoid imprisonment and death. Instead, he was allowed to retire in solitude. After coming out of retirement at his sister's request, Basiliscus used his military background to convince Zeno's Isaurian supporters to abandon their emperor. This allowed Verina to convince Zeno that His life was in danger should he continue to stay in Constantinople. Zeno heeded her warning and fled the capital with his family and a warband of his Isaurian kin. They ran all the way back to the safety of Isauria, leaving the throne up for grabs. Upon hearing of the emperor's departure, the citizens of Constantinople unleashed their violent hatred of Isauria upon any mountaineer who remained. It was a massacre. Now with the mountain folk successfully removed, Verina thought her scheme was all but complete. Unbeknownst to her, she wasn't the only one in the family with a knack for treachery. Basiliscus, the brother who owed Verina his life, betrayed her. His ambition for the purple outweighed the love he held for his sister. It turns out he had convinced the Senate to declare him Augustus instead, and his ascension was made official when he was crowned at Hebdomon Palace in 475. His wife, Zenosis, was also crowned Augusta, the rank coveted by Verina. Basiliscus had stolen Verina's scheme and crown, but the real crime against his sister was this final act. Fearing the retribution and cunning of Verina, the new emperor ordered his sister's lover, Patricius, to be executed. Emperor Basiliscus quickly proved to be just as unpopular as Zeno, mostly due to his controversial religious opinions, which he tried to force onto everybody else. Both he and his wife were in favor of monophysitism. Jeez, that's a mouthful. The idea that Jesus was divine and only divine, not human at all. This idea was heresy at the time, and actually still is in the eyes of most Christian denominations. The ruling couple issued a decree promoting this idea, in addition to directly reducing the power of the local patriarch, Acacius, who in retaliation draped the icons adorning the Hagia Sophia in black, and commenced a public period of mourning for the church. The uproar that ensued would eventually force Basiliscus to flee the city. The church wasn't the only power base upset with the new emperor. The warlords and generals who supported his coup were distrustful of the allies the new emperor surrounded himself with, especially his nephew, Armitaeus, who was not only the new master of soldiers, he also happened to be the empress's lover. Yeah, you heard me right. The Emperor Basiliscus permitted his nephew to freely associate with his wife, the Empress Zenosis. This adulterous and practically incestuous behavior wasn't kept a secret either. It is said that their interactions became intimate, and as they were both persons of no ordinary beauty, they became extravagantly enamored of each other. They used to exchange glances of the eyes, constantly turn their faces, and smile at each other. And the passion which they were obliged to conceal was the cause of duel and teen. Then Zenosis coaxed Basiliscus to grant her lover the highest office in the city. The preferential treatment given to Armitaeus inflated his already large ego to colossal heights. He was already known for being cruel, as there are tales of him cutting off the hands of Thracian rebels, but his reputation of being self-obsessed is how history remembers him. Despite the obvious disgust of those around him, except his aunt of course, Armitaeus began to imagine himself to be Achilles. He would dress himself as the demigod and ride about the city, to the astonishment and amusement of everyone else. The masses gave him the nickname Pyrrhus, meaning fiery, on account of his rosy cheeks, but Armitaeus took it as a badge of honor, as he probably thought he was being compared to the famed general of the Hellenistic age, the same Pyrrhus whose name coined the phrase Pyrrhic victory. One account states that he did not slay heroes like Pyrrhus, but he was a chamberer and a wanton like Paris. Beyond church and state, Emperor Basiliscus also managed to garner the hatred of nature itself. During his reign, a natural disaster, most likely an earthquake, caused a great fire to erupt and engulf Constantinople. The fire completely consumed entire quarters of the city, reducing every building to ashes. The greatest misfortune of his reign was the fire's total destruction of the library known as the Basilica. It was founded over 100 years prior by Emperor Julian and was said to contain no fewer than 120,000 books and scrolls, including a over 100-foot-long copy of Homer's Odyssey and Iliad, written on the intestine of a serpent in gold letters. The people believed the fire to be divine reckoning against the emperor. It's not so hard to imagine why the generals who initially backed the emperor's coup changed their loyalty once again. Named first amongst these generals was Ilus. Shortly after Basiliscus took the throne, he ordered Ilus to track down Zeno and bring back his head. Ilus marched a warband to the mountain fortress of Assaria, where Zeno had returned to rule as a chieftain. But before he arrived, Ilus received word from Constantinople detailing the emperor's ill deeds. It was clear that the Senate and the leading ministers wanted Zeno to return to his rightful place on the throne. So the general joined forces with Zeno, and their combined war party turned around to march on Constantinople. When Basiliscus learned of his coming doom, he tried to quickly make amends and repair his image with the church and common people, but the damage had already been done. So in a last-ditch effort to save his reign, he sent his master of soldiers, Armaetus, out to meet the invaders in battle with all the remaining manpower he could muster. The ensuing battle would have been a great one, but it just so happens that Basiliscus, the man who once betrayed his sister, would now be betrayed by the nephew who shared his wife's bed. Armaetus received an offer from Zeno that promised him the role as master of soldiers for life, in addition to his son receiving the rank of Caesar, heir apparent to the throne. This was an offer he could not refuse, so Armaetus betrayed his uncle and allowed Zeno's forces to enter the capital without drawing a single sword. The reign of Basiliscus ended with his beheading in 476. His wife, Zenosis, and their children were also put to the sword. I wonder if Armaetus regretted his decision after learning he essentially allowed his lover to be killed, though I'm sure his enshrined position of power helped ease the heartache. Certainly seeing his son declared Caesar would have helped, at least for a little while. That is until the recrowned Emperor Zeno, acting on advice from Ilus, decided to assassinate Armaetus and strip his son of his rank as Caesar. But it must have been nice while it lasted. This soap opera, Game of Thrones moment in history has been drowned out by the events and wars that follow, namely the rise of the Ostrogothic kingdom of Italy and Theodoric's rise to greatness, in which Zeno plays a key role. Who knows if any of that would have occurred if Armaetus stayed true to his aunt/lover. Anyways, keep an eye out for more on the Ostrogoths and make sure to subscribe if you're interested in any of that. I've been your host, Andrew, and I'll see y'all on the next episode of Europa Historia.